Hey friends, I'm RSKT, and in today's video I'll be showing you how I went about making this design in the iPad Pro version of Affinity Designer. This is another one of my designs that I wound up getting printed out and put on a sticker, and I sell this sticker and other stickers just like it on my Etsy store. Alright, let's jump into it. You might have already noticed that I forgot to start recording again when I did up the rough sketch of this, but you can pretty much see it behind all of this fine line work that I'm doing. I'm not really putting a lot more time into this video like I have in my others. This one's a pretty basic design, and if you're after a more detailed approach of how I go about making this in Affinity Designer, check out my other videos. I've already done some pretty in-depth stuff there. Basically, this design came about when I was just brainstorming for new things to sell on my Etsy store. I couldn't really think of anything at the time, and I looked over at my vape and thought, why not make a vape sticker? And it turned out that some people liked it enough to buy it, so that was pretty cool. Here you can see me thickening up the edges of each of the main objects. This just helps them stand out a little bit more from the other objects surrounding them and keeps all of the detail as tiny thin lines. Now it's probably a good time to give you all a quick update on how I'm going with my drawing course. I've pretty much mapped the whole thing out. I've written up some basic scripts to go off of. There's going to be at least 30 videos that are going to detail how to get started with drawing and basically how to draw cartoons like the stuff that you've seen me post already. I really want it to be easily digestible for anybody, so even if you've never drawn before, I'm going over like a bunch of basic exercises and simple fundamentals, and then just diving straight into the fun stuff. And eventually we'll be slowing all of this whole process down so that you can see a really detailed view of how I go about making something like this, the whole process from start to finish. I think it's going to be really cool, and I'm really excited to share it with you when it's all finished. For now, I have a few more time lapses just like these that I'm going to be slowly uploading over the next few weeks. And once that's out of the way, hopefully I'll have a few videos under my belt for this drawing course that I'm working on, and then I can start sharing them all with you. Originally, I was trying to experiment with some different shading designs on this one. I was just trying to do something different than what I'd done in the other videos that I've already uploaded here, but I wasn't really happy with how it turned out. I wound up still adding in like all of these hard shadows and highlights like I do in every drawing. But I tried experimenting with some different halftone things, which you'll see come up, and I played around with it for a while. It looked great, but at the end of the day I knew that this was going to get printed on a small sticker, and you couldn't really see half of those details when I zoomed out, so I thought what's the point, and just wound up recoloring it the way I color everything else. Even though I'm going to be coming in and adding in a lot more detailed shadows later, I always like to put down hard shadows and hard highlights. It just helps each object stand out from the other objects surrounding it. It's a little bit easier for your eyes to look at. When I'm putting in all of these colors, I'm actually using the pencil tool, picking out really big shapes and then merging all of those shapes together. And that way, when I come in later to do any sort of color work, I've got these massive shapes that can act as clipping masks. It helps me stay in the lines, and it keeps everything from interfering with the other objects around it. I was experimenting with putting like a few colors through this wavy vape juice that everything's sitting on, but it just didn't look alright in the end, so I moved on to this whole halftone effect. If you ever want to give this stuff a go yourself, I actually downloaded this halftone pack from Frankentoon. He's a really big content creator. He makes tons of brush and texture packs for Affinity Designer and Procreate. Definitely recommend Googling him. His artwork is like fantastic, and I pretty much use his brushes in everything that I do. These halftone effects are like really cool for making cool comic key designs. I've used them successfully in the past, I just don't think it really worked very well for this one. But basically they're just assets that you drop inside a clipping mask, and then you're free to scale them and skew them however you want, and then change the color of them so that they match into your artwork a little bit nicer. It's a really good way of adding in some texture and variety, and if you really work it enough, you can almost make it look like it's been printed and that the printer has been a little bit sloppy and some colors haven't been overlaid properly. Just like when you get a really old comic book and see some of the colors and shading go outside the lines. It's really, really cool. But again, yeah, it just didn't really work for this. The sticker was going to be way too small for anybody to see half of this stuff. So yeah, you'll see me just cut over to shading it like I do everything else. I guess that's one of the fun things about art, is that even though you can spend, or what might feel like waste, a whole lot of time on something, at least you're always trying out new ideas, or at least I think it's important to try out new ideas. I'll often spend hours trying out something and trying my best to get the most out of it, and sometimes it fails, but then I'll revisit the idea later on and it just works for the next piece. Art is just an endless tunnel that you can constantly be going down. You know, you're never going to be the greatest artist in the world, but you can always try to push your limits and your boundaries until you get something new. So here's me pushing some of those shapes outside the lines like I mentioned before, trying to simulate a whole broken printer look. And now I'm just playing around with a bunch of different adjustment layers. Alright, yeah, so now you can see that I scrapped that original design and I just came in and shaded it like I do everything else. If you're after a really more detailed look at how I go about doing this, feel free to check out my previous videos. But basically I just come in with darker colors, pick out some shadows with some cool textures, and then start working on the midtones and then slowly work my way over to the highlights. And here's the final design. If you like, leave a like. If you don't, tell me why. And feel free to subscribe if you want to stay tuned for when that drawing course comes out. I'm really excited to share it with you all. There's going to be a few more videos popping up, even some portrait stuff. I even think that this might be the last old Affinity Designer time-lapse that I have to share with everybody. So the next one's probably going to involve some Procreate, some Adobe Illustrator, and then we'll see where we go from there. Bye for now, thanks.